So we went to Chelsea to snatch Enzo. Now Enzo's coming and he needed some players. So he said, go and get me Enzo from Chelsea. And the board must have been saying, we just got you from Chelsea, mate. What are you talking about? But he was talking about Enzo Fernandez. And it looks like Enzo Fernandez is also now coming to us from Chelsea. Enzo x Enzo. And this is huge. The fees that are getting talked about, we've already missed the supposed deadline that Chelsea set for £120 million, which means that just in order for them to keep a little bit of face, it means minimum it's probably going to go up to at least 130 if we're going to get him in the door, which Enzo Maresca seems persistent on doing. Obviously, we're going into the last couple of weeks of the window now, and we do need more signings. Looks like we're getting Alan in. Buadi's got the here we go, hasn't been officially announced, but pretty much here it seems now. But we probably do need another midfielder. Now, is that midfielder Enzo Fernandez? I'm unsure. Even if we're forgetting the price tag for a minute, just asking what is his actual position? Where does he actually fit into this team? Now, I can't speak for Chelsea and their fans on their perspective on where he was playing or where he played best. For me, when I've watched him, maybe not necessarily under Maresca, but at least when I think of him, he's an 8/10. Now, for me, that is not the position in midfield that we need to be worrying about at the minute, because you've got Cherky in there who should be starting. You've also got that conversation with Phil, because it seems apparent that Enzo Maresca really likes Phil Foden. I don't know the situation there. For me, Cherky should be starting, whether Foden also gets in, I don't know. But I don't really understand if Enzo Fernandez isn't coming in to be one of the sixes at least, where he actually fits in, because Cherky has to start for me. And if it means Enzo Fernandez coming to start in that position ahead of Cherky, come on. I just think it's a waste of money if that's the case. And then I go and look at him and I go, okay, well, Rodri's left. We're obviously getting players in to fill that position. Anderson for me is an 8. Like I said, Enzo Fernandez for me is also an 8/10. So both of those aren't sixes. Now, Anderson can fill in the 6. I've also heard from Chelsea fans that Enzo Fernandez playing a bit deeper can do that. Okay, you've got the presser in Anderson. You've got the more of a ball player in Enzo Fernandez. So, okay, they're not necessarily out-and-out sixes, but they encapsulate some of the Rodri qualities, but obviously not just in one play, but you're not really going to get that. I think he is a good player, and immediately anyway he comes in and makes an improvement, especially when we've got Mark Gahey currently playing in there. Buadi comes in, he's young, he's 18 years of age, you want him to develop. Having Enzo Fernandez coming in, because obviously regardless of where he plays he's going to start, means that Buadi probably maybe gets a bit more time to take the back seat in more games and get development in terms of learning from more experienced players, which is a good thing. That'll help his development more, won't put as much pressure on him. £140 million is probably the price that we're talking here. That would make him the most expensive Premier League signing ever. Is he that? I don't know. I mean, we did overpay for Anderson, yes, and rival fans have already brought up he's 0-0-2, but I mean, I think we all know that Anderson is not that type of player. Now, a lot of people will say, well, why did you pay that much money for him then? Well, Forest, I think, literally rejected like £108 million bid, so it shows they weren't really going to sell him for less than what we got him for. But in terms of what Anderson is, we needed the profile of Anderson, but he's not someone that is going to get a lot of assists and stuff. Even I know Rodri did do that, but it wasn't something that was expected of Rodri. We weren't sitting there going, Rodri, mate, you have to get us goals today, even though he did, and he scored some very important ones as well. In that sense, you might say Anderson's never going to live up to the price, yes, but I think he'll live up to his expectation of him. Whereas with Enzo Fernandez, this whole thing with the stats is going to become more of a thing, because he is more that player. I think I've talked already about how I think he's more of an 8/10. I think we kind of seen that firsthand when Chelsea played us at the Etihad. He scored last minute against us to get the equaliser for them, and it was from a run into the box crashing midfielder, getting on the end of a cross. that's him for me, and I don't really see how that fits in without getting rid of the likes of Cherky and stuff. Now Chelsea are obviously going to need a replacement. I've seen reports that apparently their ideal replacement for him is Alex Scott, and apparently they're looking at getting him for around 80 to 90 million pounds. We talk about some of the other players that we could be potentially looking at instead of Enzo Fernandez, which could be better, even though we obviously know Maresca wants him, so it looks like if anyone's coming in, it's going to be Fernandez. But you look at some of the other options, Alex Scott would be one of them. Now, he, for me, is more like that because he isn't necessarily box crashing. He's more of a tempo setter, and I think that's what you need. I just think Cherky can do that job. You've got Nico O'Reilly, who, I'll be honest, when I've watched him so far this season, and I know it's only been the Community Shield and the league game against Bournemouth, but honestly, I don't really know what his job is. I know he starts at left back, but last season he was going inside, getting into the box, basically playing as a 10. He was even at sometimes technically in line with Haaland, so you could argue a second striker, but a 10 really. I think the type of player that Enzo Fernandez is what Nico O'Reilly is, which is why I don't really understand why we're going for someone like that. Alex Scott is a pure tempo setter who doesn't do all that running into the box and stuff, and will just sit deep and get the balls into the players who will do the stuff like your Cherkys, like your Semenyos, like when he comes back, your Dokus. Someone similar to that as well that I haven't mentioned so far, Adam Morton, probably in and around a similar price. And I know people might sit there and go, well, if Enzo can sit deep and he can make runs into the box, then surely that's better than just having someone that can sit deep. In some cases, yes, but in some cases, no, because although he's more of an all-round player, Anderson, who is not an out-and-out six, so you need the two of them there constantly to help us defend whilst also helping us on the ball. So I think the fact that he does go into the box and he's a bit of a box crasher a lot means that Anderson's left on his own, which I'm not really, although I know he can play there, especially in games against weaker teams, I'm not certain that Anderson can do that job alone. And with Enzo Fernandez going into the box a lot, that is going to leave Anderson doing that sort of thing. So that for me, again, it's something that puts him down in comparison to Wharton or Scott, who will just sit back and will do that job alongside Anderson, even though their best qualities are probably on the ball as opposed to off it. But look, at the end of the day, he is a decent player. He does get goals, he does get assists. You don't want everyone to just go through Haaland and be like, oh yeah, only you can score, mate. Because as much as he pretty much scores in every game, he doesn't score in every game. And that in the past, particularly last season, I brought up that stat where Sunderland game December, when we won 3-0 against them, was the first time in the league where we'd won a game without Haaland scoring. Shows that we struggle to win games when Haaland doesn't score, so we need as many attacking options as possible, but we also need a balance. I also go into the fact that a couple of years ago, when these transfer windows come up, you always get people saying, oh, suggestions, who should we buy? And then you always get people being like, maybe not these players specifically, but these type of players. But then, like your Elise's, your Doués, your Vitinhas and stuff like that, who, at the best players in the world, you go, they're unattainable, because even if you get them, they're probably going to be like 150 mil. You're not going to spend that type of money on every single purchase when you need 4 or 5 signings within one summer. And yeah, here we are, and I know Buadi's 85 mil technically, but we've basically spent 100 mil on every player. And yeah, I think Anderson's a good signing. I think that one's a little less so, but with the others, you kind of like, I don't know. And that's a problem. If you're spending this type of money, and I know the market's inflated and stuff, and the players that we're talking about might nowadays be probably 200 mil and stuff like that, but I think if you're buying someone for this much money, it should be someone that, even if it doesn't work out that way, for instance with Isak, you thought that was a guarantee, didn't work that way, you at least initially when you sign him think, yeah, dead on, I know he's going to come in and I know he's going to do business for us. I'm not really sure with that, particularly with the Buadi and Enzo Fernandez deals. Buadi, just because I don't know a lot about him personally, and Enzo Fernandez, just because I'm a bit like, I've watched him at Chelsea, and he can have a good game, but then he can also have a bad game, and when you're 140 mil signing, the most expensive Prem signing ever, 140 mil and having good games and bad games that here and there, that's not going to cut it, because if you're alright at that price tag, that's just classed as bad. You have to either have to be very good, or you're alright, or just shit anyway, and you're classed as shit. What do you think on the signing? Leave it in the comments. I mean, I think it's alright. I think it could work very well, but it could also go the other way. And with 140 mil, and you probably still need more signings, really, especially in the attacking areas. I just think it's a bit too much of a gamble for the price tag.